Hi, everyone. So, years ago, I was dating this woman, and then we broke up. And the night we broke up, we ended up hooking up. But we were broken up, so it didn't continue. But then, like 3 months later, I ran into her again, and we hooked up again, and suddenly we were dating again. And I would say this went on like this for a good year and a half before either of us ever had a conversation about what we really wanted.
Or didn't want.
Or didn't want, as the case may be. Because I would bring this up because tonight we're talking about situationships.
Yes, those pesky situationships. I remember there was this guy that I met.
Yeah.
Kind of through a business contact.
Okay.
But it was clearly like he was interested in me.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't that interested in him when we met. But then we kind of lived near each other, and his mom ran a bar.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we kept, I don't know if he purposefully found where I'd be or he invited me to things and I went. It was so long ago now.
Right.
But it was like the early 90s. But he kind of pursued me for some time.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally I was like, he was so consistently pursuing me over time.
Right.
And that I was like, okay, fine. Like, let's give it a go.
Right.
And then I found out, like, he was, like, we ended up stooping, and then,
Right.
and then I found out he was stooping somebody else, and I was really pissed off. And he was like, "Oh, well, we were never had an agreement about being exclusive."
Right.
And so I was like, "You pursued me for like over a year, to then just lump me in with." I was.
Well, that's
very
what he was
confused.
pursuing you for.
So then he got what he. Yeah, but he was mad when I was like, "We're done." You know,
Well,
he's
because
like,
he wanted
he's like,
more.
"What do you mean we're done?" And I was like, "Well, we're done. Like, I thought you wanted a relationship, you know."
Right.
And he was like, "But we never had that conversation." And I think the reason why I bring it up is because it's about not having had the conversation.
Right.
Right? It's easy to say this, that, and the other, but if you're not, you know, there's so many things that we deal with when we're talking to potential clients or to our clients or to people who stop us on the street or
Mm-hmm.
send us emails or whatever conversation we kind of get into. There's this whole thing about dating where people think, oh, right off the bat, you shouldn't say what you want. And I'm always confused about
Right.
that. What do you mean right off the bat you shouldn't say what you want? Why not?
Why are you holding your cards so close to your chest?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get married and have a family, I mean, that's, you know, there is a true ticking clock involved. But even if that's not, that's not part of the game, if you still want exclusivity and you're the kind of person where exclusivity is important to you and you're looking for that, I mean, if you're just looking to hook up, then, you know, I don't know why you're here. Quite frankly. As a matter of fact, why don't we say who we are and what we're all about?
You got to go for it.
All right, everybody. Hi, I'm Orna Walters.
And I'm Matthew Walters, and this is Love Intervention. We're here to intervene in your love life to get you out of all those bad strategies that are not getting you what you want and onto the path of long-lasting, soul-satisfying love. And we'd love to know where those of you who are watching us live, where you're joining us from. So please type it into the chats.
Yeah, let us know where you're joining us from. I mean, here's the thing, is we're here and we call ourselves soulmate coaches. Why do we call ourselves soulmate coaches? I mean, maybe you're one of those people that thinks soulmates, what? People still believe in those? And I don't think they really understand what our definition of the soulmate is, which I'll get to in a moment. But I think this idea of a situationship, right, is this undefined thing. I mean, look, friends with benefits has an agreement to it. I mean, I had plenty of those situations. I know you had plenty of those situations, right? Friends with benefits are we hang out, we sleep together, and nobody's expecting anything more.
Right.
A situationship is this one person wants more, they're just not having a conversation about it, and the other one is getting their needs met. And that sets up a dynamic of feeling, you know, the person who wants more feels like they're not enough of something, right? Not pretty enough, savvy enough, smart enough, thin enough, desirable enough, right? There's all of that going on. So I think what we want to say is the key to not ending up in these situationships is really being clear about what you want and then date the way you want to mate. Date the way you want to mate. And so I want to say hi to Dorothy, who's joining us from Florida. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi, Dorothy.
She's the only one who typed in the chat here today to say where she's joining us from. I'm assuming there's more of you listening in. We had quite a few people interested in our situationship conversation today. And we're going to be taking your questions. This is really an Ask Us Anything, right? An AMA, Ask Me Anything, Ask Us Anything here at Love Intervention. We want to intervene in your love life so that you get that long-lasting and soul-satisfying love that you desire and deserve. And we know that you deserve it, whether we've spoken to you or we don't know you or whether we know you or not, because we don't believe there's some higher power up there like doling out love to some people and not others. Although I'll tell you, my younger self really believed that it did work that way on some level. I mean, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and I was saying how if you believe that luck plays a role in love, it's easier for us to make somebody believe that they're lucky to then bring in a beloved than it is to change their mind to let them know that luck has nothing to do with it.
Right, even though luck has nothing to do with it?
Yeah, luck has nothing to do with it.
Right.
So who out there thinks that you have to be lucky to have love? Just say me. Type me in the subject, in the chat. I said subject line, chat box. In the little chat box. Why don't you let us know that you believe you have to be lucky? Like, who thinks that we're just lucky over here? That I think it's funny, women write to me particularly all the time. They're like, you're so lucky you found Matthew. Like you were just sitting around like you were lost.
I was lying on the side of the road.
Yeah, and I found you. It's so weird. I mean, if you really think that if you're bought into this love by accident myth, you're in trouble because you're not in the driver's seat of your love life. And part of our mission is to really put you in the driver's seat of your love life to understand where your power lies so you're not abdicating your power, giving your power away to a stranger or to somebody that you've been dating for a long time.
Right.
I mean, I think what's important here is to recognize that if you're in a situationship and you're not happy about it, if you're the person that's not getting what you need and what you want out of that undefined relationship. Now, if you're young and you're just looking to hook up and you don't know what you want yet, cool, have all the fun you want. And if you're older and you still let's say you got out of a relationship and you're just looking for hanging out and maybe having some companionship or some sex now and then, we have no judgment about that. But if you're looking for a long-lasting and soul-satisfying, loving relationship with a life partner, somebody who's going to stand by you, that you can count on, that's what this love intervention is really about.
Right. See, because it's not, that situationship isn't suddenly going to become a relationship. The person who is in a situationship by choice, meaning they like it undefined, is not going to suddenly want to define it and not going to suddenly want to commit to something because otherwise they would have started out that way. And I know this from experience because that's the guy I was when I was much younger. I didn't really want or know that I wanted a long-term relationship. I didn't think I could sustain one. And so situationships were what I usually ended up in because I did like to be around women. I did like regular sex. I did like having company, somebody to go to the movies with or go out to dinner with, right? But I wasn't really emotionally available for a long-term relationship or anything that was deeper than that. And so situationships were great. As long as I kept things undefined, then I could do whatever I wanted. And so there wasn't a woman who was going to convince me to be different. And that's the thing we want you to really get is, and even if you're a woman who's comfortable in a situationship and a guy's trying to convince you for more, it doesn't work that way. It's not like you suddenly, there's a magic phrase you can say to get him to commit, right?
Get her to commit.
There aren't magic words that get somebody to change what they really want. What you want to do is you want to move on from the person who isn't available for a relationship.
And I think that's why that little phrase of date the way you want to mate. Date the way you want to mate. So I don't know if you noticed, but I'm not much of a wallflower.
You're not?
No. Have you all noticed that?
You're funny.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not somebody to just be passive and sort of just like, I mean, I was very confused. I used to think, well, if men are like supposed to pursue me, then I guess I'm prey. They're the hunters. I'll just be like a little bunny rabbit. Oh, find me.
You're
but
funny.
I'm not really good at that, right? I mean, that's not really my natural.
You need your bunny ears.
Ooh. Yeah. Ooh. You're a little you know. And I'm still like, we asked you to type in the chat, and nobody did. I'm like, what's going on? Hello, this is for you out there. Who? I said to type me for something. What was the question?
If you're in a situationship.
Yeah.
No, if you think you have to be lucky to have love.
Oh, yeah. So none of you answered that question.
I guess nobody thinks that.
No, or not me. And nobody thinks they have to be lucky? Okay.
I guess not.
All right, then this is our crowd.
See if there's anybody on our Facebook who wants to talk to us.
Okay, great.
Since nobody here.
So, I mean, back to me thinking I had to be a bunny. I just think that it's, oh, there's somebody in the situationship. Thank you for sharing. Oh, lucky. Sorry, that's what I said. I was like, what was my question?
Yeah.
We're in a little bit of a post-COVID fog, I'm sorry to say, but we've been, both of us had that dreaded virus again, and we're on the recovery side, so I'm sorry if our brains are a little foggy. So, all right, Pyle says that she believes you have to be lucky in order to have love. So I think the goal then for you is trying to make yourself into a lucky person. You know,
right.
I used to think I was really unlucky
in
all kinds of situations.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the way, I decided that's not really a good way to move through the world. Why don't I decide that I'm lucky? And I remember driving to work one day when I had a job, and I remembered they were giving money away on the radio. And I thought, I'm going to win some.
Yeah.
I should just win some money on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did, like 3 weeks later. I won like $2,200 or something.
I like it.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where it just, like, I decided it was going to happen. I decided I was going to be lucky. You had to be the right caller, and then you had to do something, you know, one of those silly radio, you know, back when you used to listen to the radio. But, you know, they were giving money away for free, and I thought I could do that.
Pyle says, I do think I'm lucky, but I get what you're saying.
Thank you for clarifying.
Well, it's good that you're a lucky person if you have to be lucky to find love.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I think that really, I don't think luck had anything to do with our coming together. And I think that's why we stress this so much.
Right.
But this whole idea of being in a situationship is where you're dating in a way where you're making your desires unknown, like they're behind a screen, behind a mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't want to let the other person know, hey, I'm looking for something serious. Because you think if you tell them you're looking for something serious, that they're going to scamper away. And here's the thing.
And the truth is, if they scamper away, you want them to scamper away.
Oh my gosh, you want to know right away, because then you stop wasting time on someone that's not your person. So when and I don't think any sort of getting to know somebody is a waste of time, but you know, we hear a lot about people who are don't want to waste their time going on dates, and they want to skip the dating process and rush into that exclusivity. Right. And what we want to say is, if you date in a way that actually helps you rush to your beloved, is where you're showing up authentically, and that person sticks around anyway. And so this whole idea of a situationship is going along to getting along. And I think that women mostly make this mistake. And if I'm wrong, and there's a lot of guys here tonight that want to say, wait, no, I go along to get along. I want to hear from you. So type in the chat if you're a dude that's like, no, I go along to get along. But I think mostly it's a female trend. Mm-hmm. I think that mostly a lot of women show up and they want to be easygoing, right? And they think, oh, you know, and so I think that easygoing, I don't want to say what it is, what I really want, puts you in these situationships because there's fear. Like, that's the underlying thing. And when you think about that fear, that if you say what you desire and that person leaves, wouldn't you want to know that right away, rather than spending 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 14 months with somebody and then finding out that you don't want the same kinds of life in the future? And that doesn't mean that at the very beginning on a first date you go, hey, I'm on this schedule and this is what I see my life. It's
exactly.
There's a balance.
6 months I'm going to be married, and then in 9 months I'm going to be pregnant, and we're going to move to Iowa. I don't know.
Something, but I'm just saying it doesn't. That we're talking about two extremes, and life doesn't work that way. That the dating somebody is showing up authentically while you're getting to know them, and so you're not hiding your desires, and that you're looking to see through the dating process if your match has the same values as you do,
right,
and has the same vision for the future. You know, the biggest mistake people make when they're online dating is they, you know, perusing through profiles, thinking they're going to find one that stands out, that's like, oh, this is the person I've been looking for. And it just doesn't work that way, because
you're not going to find your soulmate in a profile.
You're just not, because your brain is filling in blanks. So when you think about the way your mind works, your mind is a meaning-making machine. And in the early part of the dating process, when you like the person, your brain is slanting things towards the positive when it's a stranger, and it's filling in the blanks. It's literally filling it in. Just like those fill in the blank questions that you do, right? Fill in the blank, and your brain automatically does it. Because your brain is designed to make meaning out of things. And that's what it wants to do. But it can also slant things towards the negative in the beginning if something just doesn't go just right. And I think this is the place where people jump to the conclusion of, oh, not my person, and very quickly skip over somebody where something can develop. Because in the beginning, it's just potential, right? When you first meet somebody, it's just the potential. It's like having the seed of an oak tree. It's not an oak tree yet. It could be an oak tree many, many years from now, right? If it's tended to and it's just right. And so these situationships are something that where you're not nurturing what you want because you're not sharing what you want. So if you're not nurturing what you really want and you don't have the chutzpah to show up and say, I'm looking for a committed relationship. And I know if you watched a lot of these, I know some of the stuff we talked about, but I've shared the story before and I think it's important to share again.
Okay.
That early on, I think we were dating maybe 2 weeks. And I said something to you about, like, I'm not moving in with a boyfriend.
Right.
I was like, I'm not moving in with a boyfriend. And he was like, huh? And I said, well, it's really early in this. It has nothing to do with you. And I'm just letting you know I have an agreement with myself that I'm not going to live with a boyfriend. And because most of my adult life, I wasn't sure if I wanted to get married. But then somewhere along the way, I decided I did want that I really wanted a husband. And when I decided that I wanted a husband, I thought, okay, I need to date differently than I'd ever dated before in my entire life. And everything changed. And so here I start dating this guy. I think he's really handsome. We're getting along really well. And I think I just was like upfront about it right up front. Like 2 weeks in, I was like, look, hey, what are you doing?
Sorry, I was trying to see
Stop
if there were any
it.
comments.
You can't do that.
I saw that.
Well,
I discovered that.
yes.
Because we don't have our normal...
we don't have our support team
our normal
today.
support person who's checking Facebook for us, so I was checking it.
Can you apologize?
I'm so sorry.
I have no
opened
idea what I was
the
talking
Facebook
about.
video.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not okay.
I was trying to see if there was a comment.
Right in the middle of my sentence.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
No, I should interrupt you that way. Where's your Facebook again? Just kidding.
Yeah, you're funny.
Yeah, okay. Here's the deal. If you don't know what you want, that's one problem. But if you know what you want and you're not sharing it, oof, that's a completely different problem. And that particular problem of knowing what you want, but you're not sharing it, you're holding it close to your chest, you're not willing to share it because you have fear about what would happen if you share it, that's what's creating these situationships. Don't we have a question?
We do. So we're going to just say, this is Love Intervention. I'm Matthew Walters.
Who interrupts Orna Walters? I'm Orna Walters. Nice to see you all today. Thanks for joining us.
And
I'm going to tease him about that for probably. What do you think? I should have him like rub my feet every night for the next 2 weeks or something?
You're hilarious. We're going to be here answering your questions about love, dating, mating, and relating because... we want to intervene in your love life and get you out of the strategies that are stopping you from getting what you want and getting you on the strategies that are getting you towards the love you desire. So we had somebody email us a question beforehand because she could not be here live. But also
she's on the other side of the globe, so it's like the middle of the night.
Yeah, want to let the rest of you know that if you have a question, you can type it into the chat because we're here to answer your questions about love, dating, and relationship.
Okay, so here's the question from Sarah. Sarah says, I've had multiple instances where the guy is all in from the start, showing up consistently over weeks, only to chicken out, these are her words, abruptly after I finally agree to commit. They leave me feeling blindsided and heartbroken. How should I deal with these guys who act on how they feel in the moment without considering how sustainable those feelings might be? Why don't you start? I've read the question.
Well, I think, I think there's probably signals all along the way that you're not seeing, that these guys are not relationship material.
I would say relationship ready.
Not relationship ready, however you want to say that. But definitely I think there's things that if you're paying attention, you can see the way they behave. If you're sitting back and leaving space for him to pursue, then that's clear, but there are some guys who come on strong because like Orna told the story earlier.
Yes.
They're looking to hook up with you, but I think it's usually pretty clear that if you sleep with somebody and suddenly things change, that's what's going on there. So how are you going to deal with these guys?
Though I think it's because I know a little bit about this person, one thing. And number two, the reason why I like this question is because I felt like this. I was like, wait, what's going on with this other person? And here's the real problem. Sarah, you're putting that question on the guys out there. How should I deal with these guys? You have no way of controlling these guys. You do have a way to control yourself. Mm-hmm. So the only way for you to have a different result is to show up through the entire dating process differently so you attract a different kind of guy. Because right now, the guys that are all sparkly for you and shiny and bright out in the world are the guys who are not relationship ready. And when you want a relationship now, which is kind of where I was when I met you, I was like, I was so like stone cold single for so long before that there's probably like 3 to 5 years before being with you. Even though I had some boyfriends in there, they kind of showed up like this, in the sense of they came on strong, they pursued me, and blah, 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 and then immediately they were like, poof, and then they disappeared. Like the minute there was like any kind of bump in the road, they scampered off. Right. I would say they were more like a bunny.
Got it.
Right? Because bunnies are quick. That's like all they got. And so they're like, boop, I'm out of here. And I remember, I think this is really important, and I wish we'd have taken better notes. I wish that we had taken better notes when we started dating. Like I wish we had a crystal ball to know we'd be doing this work together. Because there was something that you said to me where I knew this was going to be really different. And it was pretty early on in our dating process.
And what was that?
You looked at me and said, normally I would leave right about now, and I'm not going anywhere.
All right.
Okay, we'll see y'all later. Like, nobody's typing in there. I'm like, we could just go and take a nap. So here's the deal. When somebody is showing up in a way that's different, if you constantly have a pining, I don't know, for me, it was kind of like this obsessive kind of pining for somebody. Right. It was like, I wanted what I can't have. Mm-hmm. I know that feeling. I was stuck in this, I want what I can't have, I want what I can't have, I want what I can't have, I want, because people like, get clear on what you want, and I'd be like, okay, I want Mike, or Dave, or Bob, or Steve, or whatever, like whatever name you give the guy. Mm-hmm. I was like, it's super specific, I want this guy. And you and I now, on the other side of it, I think that's so funny because that's not what we mean. Right. Because we're not saying be specific about the man, like you meet some guy and you're like ding, 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 and all the bells and whistles go off and you think, this is my person. And you get really attached to a person. And Sarah, I'm talking to you and everybody else listening, but you asked this question because you're saying these guys don't take into account that their feelings might change. And what I want to say to you, Sarah, as a grown woman to another grown woman, everybody's feelings change.
That's the nature of feelings.
Feelings are transitory. They're temporary. Mm-hmm. So you're believing and investing before somebody's proven themselves. And I think that is so important that I'm going to say it again because it's important to this topic tonight, right? That's why we got the question today, because Sarah knew it'd be the middle of the night when she got, when we were doing this live call about situationships. And she's like, I'm tired of these situationships. How do I root these guys out? Right. Because there's a big mistake that you make in the dating process is you think, I don't want to go through that again, and yet you're still leaving it to chance, to by accident. Well, actually... So it's like, hold on, because there's this, there's this submersive that's missing. It's like all the news right now about this missing thing that went to go, these like 4 of the richest people on earth that spent, $250,000 to go down and see the Titanic, which is like going to a gravesite. It's kind of weird. But anyway... There's something about being on that Titanic when you're up in the crow's nest looking for icebergs. So the job of those people in that crow's nest are, guess what? To find the icebergs. And yet we look for what we don't want so we can steer clear of it. And life becomes this weird obstacle course of trying to avoid the thing that we've been looking for so that we can avoid it.
Well, the more we talk about this, the more it sort of hits me. I think I have an insight about what's going on. Okay. So I think what happens with Sarah is Sarah plays things close to the vest. She doesn't reveal. She doesn't open up at the beginning. She's a bit closed off, right? Because she's
Waiting to see what
waiting
happens.
to see what's going on with this guy.
Right, not
I'm
trusting.
I'm gonna hold back.
Okay.
And wait and see what's going on with this guy. And then this guy's like, "You're interesting. You're not showing me what's going on. That's interesting. I want to find out what's going on in there," right? And he gets intrigued by that, and
Because it's mysterious.
Because it's mysterious,
Yes.
exactly. And so as soon as he gets in there, he keeps coming on. He keeps coming on because he wants to know what's in there. And then you reveal your vulnerability, and he's like, "Oh, that's really great." But none of that says that he's ready for a relationship. It just says you made it more interesting for him while he was pursuing what he was pursuing.
I don't agree.
I do, because I've been here.
I know you do.
I've been this guy, right?
But
I've been the guy
that's a different
who's
kind of woman.
no, but
The guy's all in from the start. So she
right
doesn't.
after I finally agree to commit, so she's holding back and holding back and holding back, and I don't think it's just holding back from committing, quote unquote. I think it's holding back emotionally. I think it's holding back in the relationship.
But I'm relating it to myself because I can relate to it so strongly
All right.
that I don't think I was ever closed off, or
I can't imagine you ever closed off about anything, so I don't think that applies to you. However, I think I have been with that woman who was closed off.
But I'm saying that is a scenario that exists, and I think some of those women are listening, but I don't think that covers Sarah and myself.
All right, sure.
Because I have
I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, it's my experience, though, and I think it's pretty true.
I think that's one side of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other side of the coin is that we don't take into account how intoxicating that beginning of coming together with somebody really is. And that when we first have that connection with somebody on both sides of the equation, both people don't always behave. It's not really, I mean, integrity is like too harsh a word. It's like in best practices, because there's something that happens when we come together and there's a connection spark that both people move forward with hope. But ultimately, when we get down to the nitty gritty, like I thought about this a lot, about so many of those guys that would just scamper off like bunny the minute there was a problem.
Right.
Poof, I'm out of here. And it was so, God, it was torturing me. Like, it literally tortured me. Like, I threw out all my journal books because they were only I only journaled when I was upset.
Right.
It's just like depressing.
Yeah, well, why do you need to revisit
Yeah,
that?
I was like, I remember thinking, I'm not ever looking through these again because they were just horrible and depressing. But I remembered so much of it was this idea that the thing that attracted guys in the beginning of the relationship was basically the same characteristic that I held that led them to scamper off as well. And I was like, so I don't know what to do with that. And what I want to say is the place is that what was missing, the thing that was missing, that I was showing up fully, like as Orna, but I wasn't making what I wanted known.
Well, then you're not showing up fully if you're not making what you wanted.
No, but there's a difference.
I mean, you're
Hold on a second.
you're open and vulnerable, but you're not letting somebody know what you want.
Well, that's why I wanted to circle back to that.
Okay.
So you're not sitting down at the table saying like what I said to you after 2 weeks. Like, I'm not living with a boyfriend. Like, that was really gutsy for me. That was hard. That was scary.
All right.
Like, that was really scary to say to some. I mean, it's not scary looking back because I know you now, but I didn't know you after 2 weeks.
Okay.
So 2 weeks in, when I'm like, you know what, this is going nice, but just so you know, I'm not going to live with a boyfriend. And it was scary later when you brought up living together.
Right.
And I was like, right? Like, you brought it up once, and I was like, I'm letting it go. The first time I let it go. The second time I was like, dude, like, do you remember that I told you? And you're like, I know, I've been making myself crazy. And then you proposed.
Right.
It was awesome. And I want these people to understand that you have to take that kind of risk. And if you're scared to take that kind of risk, why? The why question is something that usually doesn't put you in your power. But in this case, if you know what's creating the fear, because if you're looking for somebody to get love from, to make you feel better about yourself. Over the winter, we had a niece of ours not really a niece, but an adopted niece.
Okay.
We've kind of adopted her.
Yeah.
And because of our experience in the film industry, she was working on a movie up in Canada. And it's cold and it's winter. And she was, calling kind of in desperation. And I remember at some point saying, if you need somebody to tell you you're doing a good job on a film set, you're in the wrong industry.
Right.
And I kind of want to say that on some level to all of you listening. If you're dating, thinking someone is going to bestow love, approval, and acceptance so you feel better about yourself on you, you're not ready for a relationship yourself. And I think that fear, when we are saying to show up and say what you want, date the way you want to mate. I mean, we were on our very first date, and you asked me where I stand with kids. Did I want them or did I not want them?
Right.
And I remember asking a friend of yours, like right around when we were getting married, and he was single, and I thought, I might know somebody for him. And I said, do you want kids? And he goes, do I have to know? And I was like, yeah, you're 40. Yeah, you do have to know.
You're probably not relationship ready if you don't know the answer to that question.
When you're 40, I mean, if you're 20, sure, you don't have to know the answer at 20. But at 40, you kind of got to know whether you want to have kids or not.
Yeah.
And so when you look at what you desire, if you're still in the gray about what you want and the clarity is all buzzing around what you don't want, if what you don't want is highlighted, you're in the crow's nest of the Titanic and you're going to crash into that iceberg again and again and again in those same situations that you don't want. Because you're looking for what you don't want, because it's highlighted, it's powerful, it has emotion behind it. And what you truly want is kind of fuzzy and gray, and you kind of have an idea about it. Most people know what they don't want.
Right.
And they got a lot of energy on it.
Well, I think ultimately what we're talking about is that you have to approach dating differently than this accidental approach to dating, which is all about feelings, which is all about chemistry and attraction, and can we have a conversation while we're having coffee? And those are really the criteria that most people are using. It's like, can we have a conversation? And is it interesting? And is there chemistry and attraction? And from there you go, well, I don't want to date anybody else because I met somebody who I can have a conversation with and I feel attraction and chemistry towards.
And we rush into
and we rush into exclusivity. And none of that has anything to do with how you want to pursue a relationship. Not with somebody, but just your journey towards creating a relationship. You want to be much more intentional about it, and you want to, like Orna said, date the way you want to mate, right? You've got to be able to talk about what it is you want. You've got to be able to have those conversations. Once again, you're not sitting down with an agenda. This isn't a job interview,
it's not
right?
like
Where
that.
you're saying, okay, so this is my 5-year plan. Are you on board with that? Right? That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is just being able to talk about the things that are important to you and share those things. Every once in a while we get a question from like one of our clients who says, okay, so I'm doing a dating thing. When is it okay for me to ask fill in the blank? When is it okay for me to talk about fill in the blank? And I would say whenever you want to talk about it.
Whenever
it comes up organically in a conversation, that's when it's okay to talk about it.
Yep.
Right? That there isn't like this on the third date. Okay, so now that you've had coffee and you see this is a nice human being and you want to now have a second date and you had dinner together and it wasn't boring. Okay, so now you're on the third date. So now you can start talking about those things that are important to you.
No.
It's like, what? It doesn't make any sense, right? It's not authentic. It's not organic. It's not how you want to approach it. And so you also don't want to be in this place where you don't ever know what's actually going on. And so you have to be able to say, this is what I like. This is what I want. This is what I'm looking for. How do you feel about that? And then you find out more about that person. You don't say, I need you to answer, are you ready to do this with me? No. Orna didn't say, look, if you want to move in with me, I'm not going to do that with you until we're getting married.
It wasn't specific.
Right? It wasn't about me.
Yeah.
It wasn't about me at all. It was about her. And when I asked her, where she was with kids, it's because she was talking about kids. She was talking about her best friend who just had a baby and spending time in the hospital. And then she was talking about her nieces and how much she loved her nieces. And I'm like, wow, this woman really seems to talk a lot about kids. I wonder how she feels about whether or not she wants kids.
Oops.
Right? And so it was a natural, organic question that came from the conversation we were having. And it was on the first date. Oh my God, the first date we talked about whether or not we wanted kids.
And there we were on
And
the
there
same
we
page,
were,
not
on
wanting
the same
them.
page. And look,
Yeah.
it made it easier on the second date. We didn't have to worry about, wow, I'm really starting to like this person. I hope she wants what I want.
Yeah.
We already kind of, at least
Started
in that
getting-
part,
Yeah.
we were already figuring
Check.
it out. Right?
I mean, I remember the first time we ever went, the first trip we ever took together was camping over a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we were driving back down the mountain and you said, travel well together. Check. like
Yeah.
you did have these little things on your
Well,
checklist.
no, but I mean,
It was cute.
but yes, you do need that at
You're
some point.
blushing
No,
a
I mean
little
there is
bit.
no, that's something that's important to know. Can you
Yeah,
travel
can you
with
travel together?
Can you travel together? Because look, if one person wants to stay at a 5-star hotel and the other
All
wants
the
to go
time.
adventure backpacking, then
All the
it's
time.
it's not going to be a good fit, right?
But if you can do both of those things.
If you
great.
want to do both, then great.
Yeah.
Then you can both do both together.
I mean, I'm just saying that the fear is that if you show up authentically, that person's going to scamper off. I mean, I remember, and it was kind of around when I started getting more serious about wanting to get married. I don't think I was able to say the words yet. I don't think I was able to say the words like, someday I want to get married. But it was in that evolution as I was changing and thinking more about what I really wanted. And I think it was like the second or third date with this guy. We went up to Malibu. It was a really lovely afternoon. It was a beautiful day. We were back at my place. And I made some joke. I thought it was funny. And it had nothing to do with him, except for his last name started with an M.
Okay.
And I said, oh, if we get married, my initials will be OM. I never heard from that guy again.
Oh my God, you said if we get married.
Yeah, I said if we get married.
You didn't say when.
But I want to say something. But
Yeah.
if you look at the date, I think it was our third date. So we took me out to Malibu. We
Right.
went out to fancy lunch because Malibu's fancy.
Right.
And then all of those shops, you can't buy anything for less than what? Any item for like 50, 60 bucks or whatever. He bought me a hat. I think he bought
Okay.
me a hat for like 80 bucks or something.
Wow.
Only because it was in Malibu, whatever. And I remember, I remember he bought me the hat. I mean, we had like a really nice day. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? I mean, he dropped, lunch in Malibu, a hat for 60, 80 bucks, whatever it was.
Right.
And I remember thinking that was so funny that I never heard from him again because I made a joke saying, if we ever get married
Right.
on the third date.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and I'm not saying make jokes about the things that you want. I was making a joke because I thought it'd be funny if my initials were OM. But I'm just saying that when you show up authentically, if that person doesn't meet you where you are or want to work out through those challenges, those bumps, those miscommunications, those little things that show up, they're doing you a favor to scamper off.
Right.
And if you're committing and investing your heart and not saying what you want, you're in trouble because you are in that situationship where it's undefined and you don't have a way to break out of it. So I'm going to toss it to our audience. They've been listening to us sort of babble on for a bit, and I want to hear what your questions are for us tonight. So it could be about situationships, but it can be about you and wherever you are right now. And if you don't have any questions for us, I think we're going to wrap it up.
Yep. I think so.
I still need more sleep, quite frankly. And be safe out there because this thing's not over. We all want COVID to be over, but it's not yet.
Yeah.
So we're going to give you another moment. I'm going to say again, hello everybody, I'm Orna Walters.
I'm Matthew Walters, and this is Love Intervention, where we're here to answer your questions and intervene in your love life and get you on the path to the long-lasting love that you desire. I'm going to look up Facebook and make sure not to
play the sound.
play the sound.
I don't know if you'll be able to be successful, but I'm going to say this. 2 weeks from now is July 4th, and we are just not going to be doing this on July 4th, Independence Day for the USA. Yay, because we're going to go watch
We do have a
fireworks
comment,
and
so-
barbecue. So I'm just going to say that we're going to be back in the 3 weeks from tonight, which is July 11. So we'll be back on July 11 and for the next love intervention. And if you have an idea for a topic for us that you'd like us to discuss on love intervention, because every episode has a topic we open with, send us your idea for, I'm going to type this in here, episode. This is going in the chat. Send us an email to support@loveon loveonpurpose.com. So if you have an idea for a love intervention topic, send it to Love on Purpose support, SUPPORT, at loveonpurpose.com. All right, what do we got?
We got a question here. That wasn't a question. That was just somebody who said, I guess luck does have something to do with it. And I don't know what that was in response to. So I'm not going to go back to it. R, who just typed in the chat, says,
Hi, R.
how to deal with the fear to say what I want and face the rejection. Is it good to say what I want before meeting via internet?
No, it's not. You don't, that's too, no. See, here's the thing. Let me tell you something. You're like, how do I show up but not risk it all? Because you don't want to be authentic with somebody. What if they're not even, nothing is real till you meet in person. There's no reason for you to be vulnerable via the internet.
Right.
There is no reason for you to be vulnerable on the telephone. There is no reason for you to ever be vulnerable and do anything or share anything personal about yourself. Never invest or risk or share anything important to you before you've met that person live and you've sat with them physically in the same space. And yes, I'm also including Zoom or iChat or any kind of video messaging service, because the reality is your mind fills in the blanks. You have no idea. You might know that that person is who they say they are,
right,
with their picture and their face,
right,
but there's no way for you to really show up and risk. The more you do it, the easier it gets. And so when you're saying face the rejection,
well, actually,
hold on, I'm not done.
Okay, you got it.
When you're saying, how do I deal with the fear and face rejection? And we're saying, how do you show up, risk, and get the reward? I want to flip it on its ear, because you're immediately going straight to rejection, where what you could get is somebody who goes, cool, I'm on board with that. Mm-hmm. Thanks for letting me know.
I think part of the problem that so many people do is they invest too early. They invest emotionally, they invest with hope, they invest with this could be the potential, and they get all excited and put all this expectation towards somebody who's still a stranger. And so what we would suggest is, if you're not invested emotionally yet, you just go, this would be an interesting person to have coffee with, right? And that's your criteria. That if it's an interesting person to have coffee with, then why not just share with them who you are and what you want? And maybe they'll step up and go, I want that too. That sounds awesome, right? But if you invest, and this is what so many people do, it's like, well, I don't want to waste my time by meeting with somebody, who isn't going to be a good potential. And so I'm going to screen. I'm going to have long text conversations. I'm going to have long phone conversations, long video conversations before I ever meet that person in real life.
You have a way unrealistic expectation.
Then you're really wasting your time, because everything that's happening in those text communications, in those phone calls and those video calls, like Orna said, is not real, because your brain is filling in the blanks, and your hope for what you want is filling in the blanks, and coloring it.
The whole exchange.
And so what happens is you have this high expectation of this exchange, this first date. And because you have a high expectation on that first date, that when that person doesn't want what you want, it feels like a rejection, because you've already invested. And that's how you mitigate the rejection, is you don't invest yet.
Yep.
You say, this is an interesting person.
Get to that in-person meeting as quickly as possible. Your criteria is not an axe murderer. Mm-hmm. That's really it. And attraction is not a requirement for a date. It is for a relationship, but it is not to go sit across the table from somebody for 60 to 90 minutes. Attraction is not a requirement for a date. When you don't invest and you just show up and have conversations and show up fully and say things like, I'm never going to live with a boyfriend again. That's an agreement I made with myself. And the other person goes, oh, okay, duly noted.
Yep. Cool.
Cool.
Glad you know that about yourself.
Yep.
Right? Because it's not about me. And that's really what we want you to get, is what's happening on that first date. It's not about you or the other person. It's just two people who are getting to know each other.
Because actually developing that skill to show up no matter what. I mean, when are you going to be authentic? 10 years in with 3 kids, you're going to suddenly risk and share then?
And say, well, I never really wanted kids, right?
I mean, that's trouble. That's a big time trouble, right? And I mean, that's hyperbole. I know we stretched it, but it is the other end of the spectrum. You're never going to suddenly just start speaking up for yourself. So start doing it right now when there's nothing at risk. There's no risk because that person's a stranger. So let go of that expectation, and that's how we're answering your question. That's how you deal with that fear. Is you do it. You practice, you practice, you practice, you practice, you practice, you practice, you practice. And you just show up and be yourself and say what's going on with you and what you want. Do it again and again and again and again, and eventually somebody's going to be like, damn, I'm really I love that you tell me exactly what you want from me. That's what I hear from this guy every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Exactly. Thanks for letting me know what you want.
All right. She says, thank you so much for the clear answers, how to share my needs and wants and get them met.
Oh gosh, that's like that's like a coaching session.
Yeah.
So if you want a coaching session, actually, here's something that I think is really important. We're putting together something we've never done before. And if you're interested in the details, I want you to send an email to the same email box, support@loveonpurpose.com, and just put details in the subject line with your name, first name, last name, and email address. So just send that over to us, and we'll have your email, and our team is going to collect those because we're putting something together. We're putting together a new kind of program to help more people. It will be a group thing where you still have access to us. So it's still in the works. I don't want to share too much about it. But if you're looking for the details to get some real coaching from us, rather than us just answering questions here on the fly, we want to help you. And what we're looking to help you with is to share your life with a beloved life partner, right? Because it doesn't work if you're choosing that person, but they're not choosing you. And it doesn't work if they want you, but you're not choosing them, right? And obviously it's not going to work if you're both a no, right? It's got to be a 2 yeses. You've got to have 2 thumbs up to make this work.
Yeah.
And when you really know that you have that love is inside of you and you're sharing it with another person instead of trying to get something from another person, that's where things really get interesting. I know I used to be a people pleaser, and I used to show up trying to get people to like me. And that was I was miserable. I really was. Yeah. I was a completely kind of different person. But more of who I really am is to just show up and let the chips fall where they may. And I'm okay with that. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I'm fine with it. Because I like myself. And if you don't like yourself yet, ride on our faith that there's somebody out there for you, because there's a lid for every pot. But you have to be willing to show up and risk and talk about and just show up authentically and say what you want and go on those first dates quickly. You don't have to be a private investigator and spend all this time figuring out who somebody really is. Just be safe. And I'm going to say the thing I always say when we talk about dating, especially online dating: ladies, never, ever, ever on a first meet go to a second location with somebody. So if you're meeting them at Starbucks, you're not going from Starbucks to a second location. You're going to stay at Starbucks, and if you're going to see them again, you will make a second date with that person. And it's not that there's a lot of people looking to do nefarious things. It's that the small percentage of people looking to do nefarious things will want to move you from that first location to a second location. So the best way to stay safe out there is just to never go to a second location with somebody that first time out.
You know what? That's always great advice. And I want to say this to as an answer to that second question. So we had a client, and she was dating, and she met this guy. And intellectually, they were a great match. They had great conversation. They also had chemistry. It seemed to be going really well, except there was this one thing that wasn't there for her. And it was that he would always call, and they would have to discuss the date together and come to an agreement about what they were doing. And what she really wanted was, she wanted him to plan a date and to call her up and say, I'm going to surprise you.
She wanted to feel romantic.
She wanted it to be romantic. And she gets on the phone with us. She says, how do I do that? So we coached her on how to make that request, right? And so she said to him, she shared with him her request about what she'd like him to do. And he agreed. And so the next date they had, he did it. He planned the whole date. And they had a great time. And at the end of the date, he said to her, because what was interesting about the two of them was they both knew that partnership was extremely important to them,
Yep.
right? And so he said to her, you know, you asked me so nicely that I couldn't say no. And so I planned this date and we did this. But I just want you to know this is not who I am. For me, partnership means we decide everything 50-50. And that's what I'm looking for. And she goes, oh, because that would never be satisfying for me. And even though they had a great intellectual connection and they had good chemistry and it seemed like this could go somewhere, they ended it because it became really clear in that moment that they were not a good match.
Because their definition of partnership wasn't a match.
Right.
Right? And so, I don't know how that answers your question. But
well, it does because
it's... So she's asking how to make the request.
Right. But I think it's a great example because it really shows what happens when you make the request. Right? And making the request isn't that big a deal. You just ask. You just say, hey, I really like this. Right?
Pretty much.
It's not, there's no secret magic there, right? You just ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Do we have any other questions?
I think we're going to wrap up this puppy. I'm Orna Walters.
I'm Matthew Walters.
If you are interested in it's a group coaching program, but you will have direct access to us. It'll be a beta testing group, basically. So it's a really great opportunity to work with us. And if you're interested, just put details in the subject line. Shoot us an email at support@loveonpurpose.com. It's the first time we're sharing it with anybody. So thank you for joining us tonight. We'll be back in 2 weeks. 3 weeks, I'm sorry. In 2 weeks, on July 4th, Independence Day for the United States of America, where we live. And we're going to celebrate. And instead, we'll be back in 3 weeks. So we'll be back on July 11, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Keep eyes on your inbox. If you're not already opted in to get all of our emails and invitations and you're hearing about us from the first time, just go to our website, loveonpurpose.com. We have an award-winning blog there. We actually have hundreds and hundreds of articles about dating for your soulmate, how to heal a broken heart, and all kinds of yummy stuff that we get a lot of recognition for out in the world. And I don't know if you heard yet, but we have a book deal with a division of Penguin Random House. So one of the reasons why we're setting up this beta group is because we need to have some more time in our schedule to write our book, and we're not going to be taking as many private clients as we have for the past 15 years. So this is something that we really want to be effective and efficient with the group in a way that we haven't done before. So we were leveraging a lot of new technology in it, and you will have direct access to us. And if you're interested in finding out more in this new, be part of our beta group, just put details in the subject line. We'll send you more details about the program, or we might set up a call. But just put in the body of the email, just put your first name, last name, and your email address. If you want to share your phone number, that'd be great. But some of you might be all around the globe, so our team or directly us will get back to you. We'll send an email and figuring out, getting you more details to what we're cooking up. And if you want to be part of our beta group, we'd love to have that. Our goal really is to bust the myth that love is just supposed to happen by accident. We think that accidental love is dysfunctional, and that's why our society is starting to crumble and fall apart, because we're not picking mates using our brains and our hearts. Your brain and your heart must be in harmony to select an ideal match for you. So your lasting love doesn't, your heart and your mind can't be in conflict. They have to both be on the same page. And that's what we really help our clients do.
All right. Everybody have a great night.
Bye for now. We'll see you in 3 weeks.